Yep.
This is happening. Yeah, I'm done with Zoom after this, I think.
We stopped using it for this too. It's like same thing. It doesn't play nice in the sandbox.
It's not reliable because sometimes it will work.
Yeah, but not all the time. And StreamYard is way better.
This is happening. Yeah, I'm done. Okay. Yeah, we're on a new Zoom. It's working on a new live stream.
Oh, it is?
Yes. So if you could just direct everybody to that would be awesome.
Okay. So how do I find it? Ooh, um let me tell Taylor.
Yeah, hold up, bear with us, guys. I guess I'll just start my intro. First of all, thank you guys for being here. So sorry for the technological difficulties. I have a lot to learn. Um, so earlier today, I did a poll on Instagram, actually. Um, and I asked people, did you know that parental alienation can already be diagnosed as as a shared delusional disorder? Um, and only 9% now said yes. So that's 91% of people who said no, they didn't know. And it was over 100 votes. So that's a decent amount of people that have no idea about this. So I think it's a really important topic. So sorry I'm flustered. I forgot to even mention Dorsey. Hello. Hi, Dorsey. Thank you so much for being
Hi.
here.
You're welcome. My
So
pleasure.
Dorsey has been kind enough to hop on and share her wisdom and knowledge and information tonight because she is so much more knowledgeable about this topic than I am. So we are very lucky to have her here, and I'm excited to hear all about how this can be identified, diagnosed, and treated. So thank you everybody for being here. Sorry about the technological difficulties. Today we're going to talk about parental alienation, the form of psychological abuse that I lived through for 20 years. It's basically when one parent manipulates their child to reject their other parent. Um, and the term that most people use is parental alienation, but here's where it gets complicated. Experts don't agree on how to define it, diagnose it, or treat it. In my previous live stream with Dorsey, we talked about the two camps. First, we have the Gardnerians who argue that parental alienation needs to be added to the DSM. And they believe that the only way to legitimize the suffering and abuse is to give it an official psychiatric label. And then we have a second camp that says basically it's already in there. It can already be diagnosed. And that second camp is kind of what we're talking about today. And the second camp believes that what I went through and what thousands of others endure and what Dorsey went through is a form of a shared delusional disorder where a child adopts the false beliefs of a manipulating parent. And they say we can already diagnose it, already treat it right now. So, why are we spending decades debating terminology instead of helping families reunite right now? Why fight for space in a book when the answers may already be in its pages? That's why in today's episode and live stream, I'm bringing on someone who knows this inside and out from her own personal experience as an alienated child, and by an expert, by as her expert with having worked and reunited many, many families, Dorsey Pruder. So thank you for being here, Dorsey. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure. I love being here with you. So thank you for having me.
Of course. So today we're going to break down what shared delusional disorder actually means and why it may be the key to understanding this form of abuse. So, Dorsey, before we get into all of the specifics, like the DI checklist, I wanted to ask you a question for people who might not have seen our other live stream.
Okay.
Why do you think the debate over the terminology, whether to label it parental alienation in the DSM or a shared delusional disorder, which is already in the DSM, has become so polarizing among professionals?
It's a great question. Well, like I've said many times in videos and on our last live, it's because many people have been operating and under the guise of being an expert in this new form of pathology called parental alienation. And when people wake up, the professional community wakes up and realizes that this is already a diagnosable pathology, and a diagnosable pathology that's not only diagnosable but treatable, then there's a lot of ego at play. So there's a whole industry that just goes away, right? There's no need to relabel it. So there's, decades of careers and peer-reviewed research that they're all, peer reviewing each other. If you look at all the peer-reviewed research on papers on parental alienation, they're all the same people. It's like they all review each other's stuff. And so they are no longer experts. So their entire career is based on funny enough, a delusion, right? That there's no need to create a new thing when it's already diagnosable. And instead of shifting to help the families, they've dug in their heels to keep this terminology alive. And I hate the word camp because a lot of the naysayers that say, parental alienation is not a thing, use that term to denigrate reunification, real solutions for families. So, um, yeah. There's also a whole bunch of people that have been doing reunification therapy, which is not a real form of therapy. There's no book on reunification therapy. It's not a real thing. That also, when they realize that they've been treating parental alienation with a non-real form of therapy, that they'll look back over their career and realize that there is a huge trail, I'm sure, of not, I'm sure, I know because I work with these families, of unsolved family trauma. And so having to admit that you've made mistakes, and we've talked about this, is really hard for people to do. And especially when you have to admit you make a mistake at the cost of harming children and families. So it's hard to shift, right, perspective and beliefs, if you will, in doing the right thing when you maybe have built an entire career doing the wrong thing. And it some of these people don't do it on purpose. It wasn't like I intentionally did all this work, to harm families. They just didn't have a solution. So they did the same thing over and over and over again, hoping to get a different result. But for the parents watching and the adult children like us, we all know that their talk therapy isn't going to solve this family dynamic. Individual therapy for the kids, or even it's usually the targeted parent, the rejected parent, they're singling out a member of the family for treatment, if you will, and creating a whole other level of pathology within the individuals. When it's a family problem, it's a family systems problem, or it's a shared persecutory delusion, as you've talked about. So, or in an attachment issue, right? So these things that we're talking about, this thing called parental alienation, is a diagnosable pathology. It's already accepted by the American Psychological and American Psychiatric Association. So, you can diagnose child psychological abuse. You can diagnose a shared persecutory delusion. You can diagnose attachment issues. There's all kinds of ways to skin the cat, if you will. And they're just not doing it. Most of the people, the clinicians, are not doing it. And a lot of the mental health providers have become interlopers in the family court system. So you have a whole new cottage industry of like custody evaluators. And I know the parents watching this that have gone down the road of a custody evaluation that provided absolutely nothing for them. And, oftentimes recommendations of just wait around, the child's not comfortable, wait for them to come around. We got to wait till they feel comfortable, and they may never feel comfortable, if you will, because they're with the psychologically abusive parent. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing all of that. I think that's a good overview of the issue at hand. So I see we have a lot of questions in the
Mhm.
chat, and we will get to those at the end of the live stream. Don't worry. I have plenty of time this go around. So, what exactly is a shared delusional disorder, and how does it apply in the context of parental alienation?
Yeah, so I'm going to just speak in layman's terms because I'm not a mental health provider, but I'll speak to what it actually is so that everybody understands. Shared delusion is when two people have a fixed and false belief about something, even when they're confronted with evidence that supports that it's false. So that's the simplest way to explain what a shared delusion is. And in this context, it's generally a allied parent, so a pathogenic parent, somebody who is just an adult who has unhealed childhood trauma. They become a parent and then they go through a divorce or separation, and sometimes in an intact family. So it's not necessarily a separated or divorced family, but it does happen in intact families where they get triggered in their trauma and then they project their trauma into the current family dynamic. And then the perpetrator is now the other parent. So a normal range parent has now become the perpetrator of their childhood trauma, i.e., into their child, and they become the almighty savior parent. And so they have a fixed and false belief about the rejected parent, and they imprint that belief onto their child, and their child then becomes has the shared belief that that parent is bad. Now, what oftentimes happens is that parent may have some flaws because there's no such thing as a perfect parent. And so mountains are made out of molehills. There's oftentimes kernels of truth in family dynamics because families are messy, right? And they're dynamic. And those things, because the professional community doesn't know how to solve it or refuses to solve it, or both, um, they hyper focus on this delusion, right? The issue, the unforgivable event, if you will, with the rejected parent. And they oftentimes will ally with the pathogenic parent, the mental health providers, through the child. And now you have three people with a shared delusional disorder, right? A fixed and false belief about the rejected parent. And now the rejected parent has to parent under a microscope and has to be perfect. And anything slightly wrong, there's no grace or repair.
Mm,
So, yeah. And so that's what that means is they have a belief about the rejected parent that is fixed and false. And even when you give them the evidence to say this is not what happened, they dig in their heels because
mm,
it's, yeah. And then it sort of feeds into that cross-generational coalition or that transgenerational trauma, if you will. So the parent has unhealed trauma. And the current system separates everybody out. And the current system doesn't understand that it's a whole family problem that requires a whole family solution, and that children love both of their parents and they want to be loved by both of their parents. That's normal. It's absolutely abnormal for a child to reject a parent. And even if the parent has done something, then there's a breach in the relationship that requires a repair. We don't just leave the relationship in disrepair. And this is what's happening in family court and also in therapy, in the therapist's office. They leave the family in disrepair. Yeah. Does that make sense?
yes, to me it does. If if a parent suspects their child is experiencing this um, delusional disorder imposed on them, pretty much,
Mhm.
what kind of mental health professional would they need to see to get a diagnosis?
Yeah, good luck with that. Um, Unfortunately, um, I would highly recommend not working with the people surrounding family court unless they are familiar with Dr. Childress's work and not just familiar with it, are actually implementing it. So don't be fooled by the snake oil who says, yes, I know Dr. Childress's work, but they don't actually implement it. So lots of people know about it, but don't know how to use the instruments properly, or they just refuse to do it. I would say if you're co-parenting or you're dealing with this family dynamic, you definitely need a family systems therapist, somebody who understands the entire family system. And then even deeper would be somebody who understands personality disorders, because childhood trauma, unhealed, creates personality disorders in adults. And narcissism and borderline and all of the cluster Bs, everybody's hyper focused on. We see this all over social media, divorcing a narcissist, and all those things. But if we have some empathy and compassion for that person, we can look at them to understand that this is just an adult child who didn't receive healing, and now they've become an adult. And that doesn't mean we leave the child with that parent. Unfortunately, they're abusing the child. So we have to protect the child from psychological abuse, from all abuse. But we don't leave that parent out. So some school of thought is to remove the child, and then there's no repair for that parent. So it's like all or nothing is responding with all or nothing. And so you really need a mental health provider who really understands family systems and understands that whole family, always a family, regardless of what's happening with the parents, whether they are married or divorced, it's still a family the moment a child comes into the world. So it's just a new family paradigm when the marriage ends. And oftentimes that's what's triggering the trauma in the parent, right? So when we look at the parent, we have compassion and empathy for them, but that doesn't mean we leave the child with them. We still remove the child, and then we help the whole family. So a trained clinician, a trained family systems practitioner understands that we treat the whole family, but this is a child protection issue. It's not a child custody issue. And this is where it gets all knotted up, is everybody runs to family court, and family court is relying on professionals, I say loosely, who have no idea how to solve the family crisis. And so they're not motivated to solve the problem. They're just not. And this is just a fact. We can look at the family court system in its current state, not just in the US, all around the world. And it's an abomination. It really is. And they're failing families time and time and time again. Yeah. So family systems, DBT therapy is amazing for people with personality disorders because it's skill-based. Yeah.
Okay. So I suppose we might need, this might be a good time to get into the checklist. What do you
Yeah,
think?
we can.
Okay. Just to walk through it for people, maybe who knows, clinicians might be watching, therapists might be
Yeah.
watching.
Yeah.
So Dorsey has shared with me, let's see here, if I can make it so we both can be on the screen. Okay. Hopefully this works. Please let me know in the live chat if this works.
Let's see. I don't know what they're seeing in the live chat because I'm on the Zoom.
Okay. It says I'm screen sharing. It's the diagnostic checklist for pathogenic parenting.
Okay. Well, I know that like the back of my hand. So, but you should put it up I can't see it on the screen. So,
Oh, you can't?
there it is. There it is.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm curious how many people have seen this. I feel like because sometimes we work in a silo that everybody knows Dr. Childress's work. And then, you did this survey and I'm like,
Yeah.
wow, 91%. That's insane to me that they don't realize that this is a diagnosable pathology. And I think one of the things that Dr. Childress and I have been shouting from the rooftops for almost 15 years is that, you know, if we all spoke in a unified voice with what's already accepted in the DSM, then it's game over. It's solved. There's absolutely no reason to be fighting about the terminology. There's no reason to be picking sides. And his instrument, the diagnostic indicator checklist, he really created something so simple to use. And I know when you looked at it, because we've been texting back and forth, your mind was like, what is going on? This is so wow, and it's like, yeah, I know. And
Yeah.
and
So
you're
even
a
the
little person like me.
Yeah, even the PSAG, which is the main organization advocating to get parental alienation in the DSM, in their recent publication, Parental Alienation Theory, they say in there, because I read it, that it can already be diagnosed as a shared delusional disorder. That's one of the diagnoses they say it can already. So I'm wondering why we're anyway.
Yeah. Well, they don't like Dr. Childress. They don't like each other. So because he called a spade, and they're upset about that. And he's not very nice about it. He's very vocal about the fact that what are we doing? We're harming families. Let's stop. And I've been in sessions with I've been at the table with Dr. Childress and Bill Barnett, who started the PASG. That was not fun a couple of times, and they were shouting at each other. And yeah. And, being the kid at the table, even though I'm a grown woman, it's, it was like, wow, come on. And yeah,
Wild.
they're, they're shape shifting. The whole industry is shape shifting, right? You hear the naysayers, the mothers' rights organizations are saying things like, we can't use that term and we got to say other things. And I'm like, just call it what it is. It's psychological abuse. But a lot of those people are actually the abusive parent. So it's like,
Yeah.
shape shifting and twisting and distorting. And it's like the pathology is very clever, and it's infected all of the industries, if you will, family court, the legal system, the mental health community, the expert community. It's like, it's very, very clever, and it's a dysfunction in the brain. And so when we simplify and we understand, it's like, look, can we just be simple? This is what Dr. Childress did. He said, here's a checklist. Are these symptoms present or not? And if they're present, then we know this is child psychological abuse. And so we must protect all abused children all of the time, period. We don't even have to go through the checklist. It's so simple. Does the child reject a normal range parent? Right? And does the child have a fixed and false belief, a shared delusion? Does the child believe that this parent has done something or is bad when they're not? And does the child have the symptoms of a personality disorder? Those are impossible symptoms. They don't spontaneously happen. There's only one way that those things happen. They're influenced either by the rejected parent or the allied parent. And that's where the differential diagnosis has to come in. Did the does the parenting, not an incident, but the parenting behaviors, patterns of behavior of the rejected parent, does it raise to the level of a full emotional cutoff?
Mm.
Sometimes rejected parents are the problem. That does happen. It's never like it's either this or it's that. And I think that's what you see in the community, the polarization of men are abusers as soon as they get divorced, right? That's the women's rights, or all the dads are now abusers.
Hmm.
And then all the dads or all women are crazy and, alienating. And, not all the dads, but you can see the polarization in the communities. And it's never black and white like that. There's always nuances. And that's why we have to look at the entire case. You can't just simply take the word of a he said, she said, which is what is happening in therapy and family court.
Perfectly said. Um, so sorry, I'll go back to the checklist real quick because I had a question.
Okay.
Um,
It's
okay.
really zoomed in, by the way.
Is that okay?
Yeah,
So you have the attachment system suppression, so the child rejecting a normal range parent.
yep.
And then you also assess that parent to make sure they're normal range, or how does that work?
Yes. So there's a parenting practices rating scale that goes through, it's another simple checklist that the clinician should be interviewing all the members of the family. So you don't just take a child's word for it and then not interview anybody. We have to interview the entire family system. So what happens oftentimes is they meet with the child, the allied parent brings them in, the therapist oftentimes has unresolved trauma being triggered by the child or the children in their practice. And then they ally with the allied parent through the child. So they ally with the child. And I can't tell you how many thousands of parents we've spoken to where the mental health provider is making treatment recommendations and cutting off children from their parent without ever speaking to the targeted rejected parent. It's insanity.
That's what happened to me. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
happens. It's still happening today, Maddie. It's
I
insane
know.
to me. It's like, how can you make a treatment plan based on a he said, she said, the words of one person or the child? And of course, we listen to children and we believe them, and then we investigate always. We never just simply take people at face value. We can't, because if we do, we may be leaving children with psychologically abusive parents, and they're corrupting the child from the inside out. So this might be a good time to talk about what we're doing, because some people get overwhelmed by, like, some of the clinicians are overwhelmed by the checklist. So as we're
Okay.
talking about the checklist, um, we've got two free resources coming out for mental health providers, guardian ad litems, and lawyers that teaches them how to use these checklists, but we've created a checklist that covers everything. So not just this, but also what's included for domestic violence. And because there's the whole group of domestic violence happens. Like, we can't just say domestic violence doesn't happen. It's only alienation. That's insane, right? Domestic violence happens all the time. Coercive control happens on both sides of the aisle, right? Domestic violence happens on both sides. So what I've discovered in my doing this work for so long is that they aren't using the instruments that are available to them. They don't know how to use the checklist. They feel overwhelmed by it. Frontline workers like Child Protective Services, guardian ad litems, family law attorneys, and even therapists, they don't know what to do. And they oftentimes err on the side of caution by what the child says, and they're causing more harm. And they're trained to look for bruises and not bruises on the inside.
Mhm.
And so I've created a couple of things that are available for the practitioners to say, here's taking what Dr. Childress has created, what the Battered Women's Justice Project has created, and their stuff is like robust, and simplified it so that when they're interviewing the family members and the children, there are nuances and things that they can ask and look for to simplify what they're doing on the front line, so that if it's a child protection issue, then they can protect the child immediately and then rehabilitate. So it's not just enough to just remove a child, they still have to rehabilitate the family. Yeah.
Absolutely. So, sorry to interrupt. I'm just seeing a lot
Oh,
of people ask about where they can obtain the diagnostic checklist.
got it. This diagnostic checklist you can get on Dr. Childress's website. I believe it's just look up Dr. Childress. I think it's either drchildress.org or .com, but if you look him up, you'll find his website, and then you can go to there's tabs. I think it's for mental health providers, and you can get all of his checklists there.
Okay. And then to get the free training for clinicians is your website?
Yep. Conscious Co-parenting Institute.com. Yeah. Taylor's probably like, oh my God, it's not up yet. So we're launching that. So if you go there and you don't see the buttons there, they're going to be up in the next couple of days. So you might have to check back. So whenever you're watching this video, it's going to be down on the home page. It'll say, are you a mental health provider or a lawyer? We have a legal strategy package and also the checklist, the checklist for mental health providers. So, and frontline workers. So people that, what I've discovered in all the years I've been doing this is the child protective service workers are like completely at a loss. They don't know what to do. And they're like, I know something's happening but I don't know what to do I don't know how to solve it. I don't know how to figure it out. Or I know the kids are lying, but I don't, but I don't want to make a mistake. So I really created this for them, for those people and the guardian ad litems who I talk to all the time. And they're like, I'm a lawyer or I'm a mental health provider, but I still can't figure it out. It's like, let me give you something very simple. And it's been something I've been doing for years. So I just decided to create something for them that they could just download.
That's amazing. Um, People are asking for it in the chat. I um okay, so I don't have the link right now and it's not up on Dorsey's website yet, but
It's it's probably not up yet. Sorry, Taylor.
I am gonna include the link to, I don't know if this is gonna work. Oh no, it won't work. Maybe. Okay, this is the link to my newsletter and I can send it out through my newsletter.
Perfect.
If that link works, I hope it does. Sign up for the newsletter, my newsletter. I can send out this episode along with the diagnostic checklist in a PDF. Um, okay, should we finish that real quick?
Sure, let's go through it.
Okay. So we did the first one.
Yep.
Then you have the 2A.
Personality disorder traits. This is,
Uh,
yeah,
cringe.
cringe. Yeah, and this is towards the targeted rejected parent, right? So the child is really demonstrative of a, personality disorder towards a parent that they're accusing oftentimes of abusing them. And if you've ever worked with abused children, then this is not how they show up. Abused children don't show up haughty and arrogant. They are not uh, grandiose and feel better than and in a position to judge their rejected parent in a way that they feel entitled to. They the splitting is what you see a lot where one parent is all good and the other parent is all bad. We talked a little bit about this the last time where the pathology is getting really clever, pathogenic parents. So they're like, well, say I do bad things too. So the kids, you can see the kids in these interviews now are like, well, yeah, no, they're not bad, but I still think, only them. So it's funny the nuances that they're trying to like shapeshift into. You can't be all they've looked at the checklist. It's funny
Oh
how
my
many
God, that's creepy.
yeah, how many pathogenic parents actually look at the checklist. And so you can see them try to shapeshift into, yeah, that one's, that this parent's bad too, or does bad thing. They make me mad too, but I still don't want to have anything to do with that parent. So they're not clever enough, I don't think, to like figure out that it's like you're still a nuanced of the splitting. And then 2B is the phobia, right? The anxiety, the unreasonable, persistent, unwarranted fear of the rejected parent. They're just like, I'm uncomfortable. I can't go. I'm afraid, with no justification. There's no authentic abuse. There's nothing there. There's no there, right? And sometimes we see a child that swings both 2A and 2B. So they go from haughty and arrogant, entitled, disrespectful to, oh, but now we can't go because I'm afraid. It's like, well, so they're even splitting within themselves, swinging the pendulum back and forth. And sad. That's just
Wow.
like, so yeah, yeah, it's bad. And then what we were talking about tonight, the fixed and false belief, the shared delusion, where the child is stuck in a belief system, a belief of this parent is bad, that the rejected parent deserves to be rejected, and that there's no repair. And I think we've talked about this too, but it makes me so mad. I get so furious with the professional community in the lack of repair in relationships and no desire to understand the importance of repairing in relationship, especially between a parent and a child. And there's no grace for any flaws whatsoever. It's like you make a mistake and you're out. And yeah, we talk about the kernels of truth, right? So you see this symptom get exploited a lot, where there's a kernel of truth, where maybe a parent yelled, or the common one, they took the cell phone away. And so how dare you do that? It's like, I've taken my kid's cell phone away before many times, right, as a parent, and it's normal range parenting, but it gets exploited. And I've seen it in court orders and mental health reports, and it's like nuts to me, the things that they shame and get hooked on is the reason the child is rejecting a parent, and it's delusional. It's like just delusional.
Certainly.
Yeah.
Um, so what is this checklist of associated clinical signs?
So the associated clinical signs, this is Dr. Childress's contribution to the diagnostic indicator checklist. These are, interestingly, these are all symptoms of personality disorders, if you will, but these are, if you're a clinician, let's say, and you maybe are subthreshold in one of the three diagnostic indicators, these are oftentimes things that we see when the indicators are present. Then the associated clinical signs can really help a clinician confirm the diagnosis, like use of the word force. You know, I can't force him. I want him to have a relationship with his dad, but I can't force him to go. He's 14. What do you want me to do? Or enhancing the child, empowering them to reject the parent. So it's like the child gets to decide when they go. And I see a lot of targeted parents make the mistake. This is where I see them make a lot of mistakes, is where they're like, well, do you want to get ice cream with me? Or, will you come? They reinforce this delusion that they get to choose, right, to have a relationship or to come on the parenting time. And it's not intentional. They're destabilized, right? Their parenting rug has been pulled out from underneath them. And so they make this mistake a lot, or they reinforce the delusion that the child is elevated in the family hierarchy. So the associated clinical signs, we tag data. So we have a program where we actually look at all the data and we tag. This is one of the data buckets that we tag for, is the diagnostic indicator checklist. And we actually did somebody did a research paper on it. And of the cases that we've tagged, when the pathology is present, there is a minimum of 9, or average 9, of the associated clinical signs in the data. So in the data is stuff like text messages and emails and clinical reports and interviews and child interviews, and the data speaks for itself. So I always say, when people work with us, I'm like, that sounds great. Let us look at the data, because it really does speak for itself. And this is how we know, how we see where even rejected parents make mistakes, because they just don't know. They don't know how to show up for their children because they've been destabilized. Yeah.
How
Does that
could
make
you
sense?
not be? Yeah, of
Of course. Of course.
course.
Yeah.
So is there anything else you want to say about the diagnose? Okay, okay. So once you have the diagnosis,
Mm-hmm.
we move to the treatment, right? What is the treatment for a shared delusional disorder?
Yeah. So it's a child protection issue. So the first step is, once you have a diagnosis, I'm going to talk about two things.
Okay.
We'll talk about a diagnosis, but I want to say something here, because Taylor's probably freaking out, but I can already tell you, We don't know who'll diagnose, so please don't ask us. We don't make mental health referrals. We don't know who's doing it, so don't ask. And uh, you'll probably not get a diagnosis. So let me just head this off at the pass because we get these calls every day that they're not doing it around family court. So I don't know. There is a way around it, though, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But let's just assume you have a diagnosis. Now, that means it's a child protection. So if you're working with a clinician who actually understands shared delusional disorders and they understand that this is a child protection issue, they're going to request a child protection. So if they're involved in family court, they can submit a treatment needs recommendation to the court for child protection, or they can work with the guardian ad litem or whoever's doing that. Or they also still need to file a child protection report with Child Protective Services. Even if they don't respond properly, they still need to do it, because if you don't do it, then they're never going to learn. So the clinicians aren't doing that because they're like, well, they don't do anything. I'm like, I don't care. You still need to do it. One, to protect your license, and two, to protect the child. And sometimes they have to report a few times before they actually do what they're supposed to do. And hopefully with what we've got coming out, they'll start really learning how to do it properly. Once we protect children, then they place the child with the rejected parent. Now, depending on how long it's been and the family, because families are dynamic and they're nuanced.
Mhm.
Sometimes they're okay. They can, especially if they're going back and forth, they're just being challenging, then family systems therapy is very powerful, where they work with the rejected parent and the child or children, and they work with the pathogenic parent separately during the protective separation. Sometimes they need a high road. So we have a high road where they need a workshop, they need an intensive at the beginning. And that's a 4-day workshop where it's psychoeducational, so in coaching. So we teach the children and the rejected parent how to be in relationship together again. So that's the worst case scenario. Those are the most challenging cases. Not everybody needs everybody. If the parents are watching, they're like, I need that. Not everybody needs a high road. A lot of times, what you'll discover is once the child is back with the parent, that the authentic child resurfaces pretty quickly.
Mhm.
Yeah. So protection, re-education. So we have to re-educate the parents, rehabilitate one and sometimes both parents, and reintegrate. So we always protect all abused children all of the time. We re-educate the parents, we rehabilitate, and we reintegrate. So when we protect from the pathogenic parent, that doesn't mean we say, sorry, bye-bye, you're out, because the child still loves that parent. So we rehabilitate the family. We teach the child how to be in relationship with both parents. When we reintegrate, it's in a controlled environment so that we make sure that the child is safe and protected. And so sometimes the pathogenic parent doesn't do the work. They just don't want to get on board. They don't want to do the work. And those are the hardest cases because the child loves that parent. They love that parent. And when they know, they still love that parent,
Mhm.
right? And it's like, why? And the child, you know this, as the child, we internalize what's
Yeah.
happened in our family. We believe we are bad. We take all the stuff and we hold it in our container.
Yeah.
Yeah. So protect first, re-educate, rehabilitate, reintegrate. Sometimes reintegration doesn't leave the controlled environment. Some pathogenic parents are so pathogenic that they won't do the healing work. Sometimes they do. They do the work, and everybody learns the same skills and they reintegrate and they move to shared parenting. And that happens more than you would think, even though I know, because we talk to parents every day, parents are going to say, that's not my ex, and you don't know, and they're this and they're that, and blah, 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 blah. Yeah, I know. And we've seen it all. And, and you would be surprised. You'd be surprised. Yeah. We look at the family, at both parents, even the pathogenic parent, with deep compassion and empathy, because they didn't choose to be a pathogenic parent. That just, you don't grow up and say, hey, I'm going to have kids and I'm going to have a personality disorder and I'm going to be pathogenic. This is my lot in life. It's unhealed trauma. And when we understand that, then we can have compassion and empathy. That doesn't mean we say, all right, no worries, let the kids go there. We help them heal, right? They have just as much of a right as you and I and everyone to receive healing. And I think this is where most people miss the ball. They have no empathy or compassion for the pathogenic parent. And then they'd have no empathy and compassion for the targeted parent. And it's like you have to have empathy and compassion for everyone and teach everyone the same skills. And when people learn new skills, it takes time. That's why we have a protective separation, because it takes time to learn the new habit. Yeah.
Mhm.
And we still have to protect kids. Yeah.
Mm. Thank you for saying that. I I wish that all of the pathogenic parents would choose to take that opportunity to heal for the
Yeah.
sake of their kids.
I know. Me too.
So we have a lot of questions, Dorsey.
Great.
Um,
Let's roll with some questions.
okay, so Jack Loop asks, what happens when the child becomes an adult and was never treated?
Great question. All kinds of things happen.
Yeah.
So, happen to you, happen to me, right? So, some adult children emerge out of the fog and receive trauma healing. They do their work, right? Some adult children emerge out of the fog and they're pathogenic. They're infected with the transgenerational pathology,
Yeah.
and then they repeat the pattern. And they expect their children to then it's just trauma moving down through the line. So it's like I like to visualize it as like a trauma ball, a ball of fire from your ancestors as it passes down to your parent, and your parent says, yeah, it's too much for me, I'm not going to do the work, so I'm going to pass that trauma ball down to you. And you're like,
Thanks, Mom.
thanks, mom. Thanks, dad. Thanks, whoever. Right. Like I have to do the work. And so the good news is social media and internet is like creating this space of deeper healing for everyone. So there's so much more awareness about the pathology now than there ever was. And I met with Dr. Childress several years ago, and I remember we were arguing. We used to go toe to toe all the time. And he was like, there's nothing you can do for them. Da, 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 da. And I was like, Dr. Childress, yes, there is. And we work with those parents all the time and they heal. And I launched a program called Higher Purpose Parenting, and he went through it and he was like, got it. And now he's like, there is something you can do and there is healing. And he's a clinician, right? He's a psychologist. So they're trained a certain way. And for years, especially when he went through school, there's nothing you can do for people with personality disorders. And I just simply have never believed that. I believe that everybody, every single person can learn new skills, heal, and grow. And a lot of pathogenic people are very smart people. They're very skilled in their businesses and their careers and their life, and they have unhealed trauma. That's it.
Don't you think it requires them to be willing or motivated to do it, though?
Sometimes. This is one of the reasons that the protective separation is so powerful, is it's a very motivating drive to get them the healing work. What's happening is when children are getting protected, if they don't use the right protocol and people don't see them as people, then they're not getting support and help. So if you're going to go down that path, then make sure you're working with somebody who has empathy for them and compassion and training for them to heal, but not necessarily. Sometimes they're not motivated and you have to motivate them.
Hmm. That makes sense. Yeah, yeah. Okay. Um, so someone asked, I can't remember, I think it was also Jack Loop who asked, why is Dr. Childress so controversial?
Because Dr. Childress's role is not the same for you and me, and we do very different things. I'm boots on the ground working with the families, right? His role is to wake up mental health, his peers. And so he's controversial because he's right and he doesn't care what people think about him. It's not about him. It's about doing what's right. And his role is to wake up mental health, to get them to stop practicing below their level of competency. It's an abomination. So, and parents want him to work for them, but that's not his role. His role is to shift mental health. Yeah.
Mm,
So,
okay.
and let me say this.
Okay.
People that pave the way take a lot of arrows. They just do. I've taken tons of arrows. They get lobbed at me every single day. And, change doesn't happen in a vacuum. And it certainly doesn't happen when everybody's whispering in their quiet voice. It happens when people are banging their fists on the table to say, hey, wake up. We need to do something different. There's already a solution. What are we doing? So, yeah. And also, Dr. Childress isn't here to save you. He's not here to work with you and save you. You don't need to be saved. You, as the parent, it's your role to shift how you're showing up and do your inner work. It's not Dr. Childress's job. It's your job. Every one of us. That's every one of us as an individual. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Someone asks, where can we get those resources for the mental health professionals? Again, it's on your website, or it will be.
Yeah, conscious co-parent, just go to consciouscoparentinginstitute.com and that's the homepage. And if it's not there today, it'll be there in the next few days. And there'll be a button that just says, if you're a mental health provider, click here. If you're a lawyer, click here. There's two separate resources.
Okay, so we have a question from Eula Vander Bison.
Okay.
Is it law for couples with children who are separating to attend what Dorsey is calling a conscious co-parenting?
Not a law. I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. So it's not a law, but a lot of jurisdictions require people to take parenting classes. Most of those classes are subpar. So if you've gotten divorced and you've taken a parenting class, you probably haven't received the skills that you need to deal with this family dynamic, but it's not a law. No, should be.
Okay. And someone else says, let's see. Okay, someone asks, and I think this is the point of the delusional disorder, Thomas Porter, what do you do when a spouse that is alienating really believes the lies they're telling? That is what we're talking about, right?
Exactly. Or yeah, they're delusional. So,
Yeah.
and then if the child that's a shared persecutory delusion, a fixed and false belief that's delusional. And so if you're going to therapy and the therapist is making you apologize for the delusion, then they are a bad therapist. You should fire them immediately. Because if you do that, you're reinforcing the delusion. So stop doing that. And if you're a therapist watching this, stop making targeted parents apologize for things that didn't happen. And I can't tell you how many therapists I talked to, and they're like, well, but the child has come to believe it to be true. I'm like, right, that's delusional.
That's the whole point.
That's the point. Stop reinforcing delusion. Then you are talking about a child protection order. Protect the child. That's like 101. So
Yeah.
obvious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in my head, my thought is, okay, since this is already in the DSM, we need to just make it well known and connect it to parental alienation and have everybody know about it and have all the mental health professionals and have it be in parenting classes and everything, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Good
Eula,
luck.
okay. What?
Good luck with that. Dr. Childress and I have been screaming from the rooftops years at different capacities. And it's like, what are we doing, people? The only reason my business, Conscious Co-Parenting Institute, exists because of the failure, the epic failures in mental health and family law. I create everything I've created is to fill a gap in no solution. When I went through this divorce, when I went through my divorce, and then it wasn't even what was happening to my kids at first because they were young, I didn't know. I'm like, I need to reunite with my dad. Like, oh my God, this is what happened to me. And this man I was dating and his daughter came to live with us. And I was like, oh my God. And there was no there was no solution. And they
Mhm.
were like, the experts were like, oh, you should just reunite with your dad. You're the kid. You should just make it happen. I'm like, okay, well, I'm a little dysfunctional. I don't know how to make it happen. Like, all right, it's like, well, but I'm going to look for confirmation bias that reinforces this guilt and shame I'm feeling that I treated my dad really poorly. So
Mm.
yeah, it's insane. It's insane.
Okay, we have another question. Can
Okay.
Dorsey Fruiter shed some light on how to repair the relationship between the alienated parent with the child? That's a very broad question. I'm
It
sure you
is a
have a
very,
lot.
yes. I literally counted how many courses are in my online campus on the flight out. I was flying today. I have 26 courses, coaching programs, things that I've created over the years. There's actually more, but I've gotten rid of some. I have 26 different courses that you can take. So, first, let me just say embrace your role as the chosen parent. The chosen parent is the parent the child's soul is choosing to wake up and do the healing work and shift how you're showing up. So, be the soft place for your child to land. We have a free healing archetype, chosen parent archetype on consciouscoparentinginstitute.com. Just click that first button, take the quiz, and you'll get a free activation and a guide to help you shift how you're showing up as the chosen parent. That's the first thing. Embrace your role and do your healing work. When you shift how you show up, you create the space for your child to fold back in. But if you are expecting them, or you're defensive, or you're that's what usually happens. You either become a doormat or you become defensive and you try to convince them. Stop that. Stop getting in the convince and resist dance. Hold the space, do your work. And we have tons of free resources, so feel free to go check them out.
Awesome. Um, okay, I'm trying to find another question. Um,
Pouring down rain where I'm at right now. I'm like, wow.
oh, thank you, Jonathan Solarski. I just now saw the $5. Thank you. I appreciate that. That's
Uh,
really kind. Um, so let's see. If you see any questions, Dorsey, go ahead. I'm
I
trying
can
to find
see it.
some.
Here, let me look.
Sorry, I put this girl Sophie in timeout because she's not here for a good reason. She's trying to, yeah,
Oh, are you a flying monkey?
claim she's a flag. She's claiming that, I am just Mattis is not well and she's a victim. She blah blah blah. Okay.
First of all, let me say something to that because I've been attacked by the Sophies for almost 2 decades. And I just want you to think about how you treat Madison is how people may treat your child. And how would you feel if somebody attacked your child like you're attacking Madison and her trauma and her experience? And for anybody that thinks it's okay to be a keyboard warrior and to get on the internet and attack other people, you don't know. And even with Maddie being vocal about her experience, it's so rude and disrespectful. And it says more about you than it does about Maddie, and Maddie sharing her experience or me sharing mine or anyone. So, Sophie, I understand that you're clearly activated in your own trauma and you're projecting onto Maddie what it is that you're feeling. And I just want to say I'm sorry that you're struggling. And if you have a question about your personal struggle or a question in general, feel free to ask it. But to attack Maddie, who so generously spends her time sharing information, says more about you than it does about her.
Yeah, I put Sophie in timeout for her own good.
Good.
Okay, so Jonathan Stolarski asks, a lawyer I paid $400 for a consultation phone call told me parental alienation is an outdated term and isn't really a thing in my daughter's county. Seems
Sus being
suspicious.
suspicious. Yes. Well, he's right. The lawyer is right. Parental alienation is not a diagnosable pathology. So if you use the terminology, you're going to get spanked in court. And if you use the terminology, and some people are like, well, I got a court order and it said alienation and blah, 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 blah. That's fine. However, you're creating a appealable order. So if you use the right terminology and you use diagnosable pathology, then stop going down the rabbit hole. Is parental alienation a real thing or not? We know what it is. So stop calling it that in a professional setting. If you use it in family court, you're not going to get anywhere. The problem with parents right now is you're not picking a lane. You want your cake and eat it too. You cannot use this terminology. It is not proper. And so it's not diagnosable. And if the professionals are using it, they're leading you down the rabbit hole, Alice, and you'll fall down the rabbit hole because it makes you feel good, because they're giving you the 7 factor, 8 factor, whatever, however many factors it is now, I don't know. And I know because I've been where you are, but it does not provide a viable solution. It provides an appealable order.
Okay, so Greg Padone asked a question that is just related to what you said. He says, Dorsey, how do you recommend we as a community talk about this in regard to the term parental alienation, family alienation, or none of it, since it seems like it's causing confusion?
Right. Call it what it is. My child is being psychologically abused. My child is being coercively controlled. My child is encapsulated in a persecutory delusion
Yeah.
with the other parent. My child is suffering from childhood trauma or transgenerational trauma. Use the right terminology. Hi, Greg. Um, so call it what it is. My child is being psychologically abused, and my
Yes.
child deserves protection. Now, Greg, I know you have adult children, so you're having to shift in a different way because your kids are now adults and you're out of the family court system. And we have to be careful about being adversarial when the child is emerging out of the fog, because if you go in defensive, the child is going to be defensive back. So you have to soften into your role as a chosen parent. Create the soft place for your child to make it easy for your child to be in relationship with you. Maddie, would you not agree that the reason you have a relationship with your dad today is he makes it easy for you to be in relationship with him?
Oh my God, yeah. Like he never once has brought up the past. He always, if I bring it up and I bring up the fact that I feel guilty or I apologize again to him, he's like, Mads, we've been over this. You know, like I forgive you for everything. It was never your fault.
Yeah,
And he's just been so supportive and open to hearing what I need. And I mean, he's made it so incredibly easy. Like,
it's,
I want to talk to him. I want to be close with him. I want to call him all the time. I want that because even in just calling him, he's always in a good mood. Like, he's always uplifting me. He's always encouraging me.
yeah,
He's, you know, if he were still stuck in the trauma and down in the dumps and unable to help me, I would be less willing to reach out to him
yeah,
because a lot of this is really hard.
it
And
is.
sometimes I just need to call him and know that he's there. He doesn't blame me. He loves me and he just wants me to be happy. He
Yeah,
and wants a relationship.
right. Listen to what Maddie is saying. And Maddie, you and I have had conversations where you were triggered, right? And you were like, I don't, my dad, and it's like holding the space for you and then helping you see a different perspective. Like, yeah, and there's no such thing as a perfect parent, and helping you find that grace within yourself again, because I know what you're doing. You're
Yeah.
blaming yourself. But then as you're blaming yourself, you want to project it onto your dad because it's like, I got to get it out of me. It's got to get this feeling out because I feel bad. I'm bad. I got to get it out. And it's like, who do I give it to? And you want to dump it into your dad's trash can. And a healthy parent says, oh, hold on, honey. Let me put in my smell good liner. Okay, give me the garbage. Thank you. And then he takes out the trash and he doesn't take it personally. He holds the space for you and he helps you empty your container so that you don't feel like garbage. And I think that when parents understand their role, that you know, we can be healthy. And when we're healthy, we can be the emotional trash can. We can take out the trash. We don't have to hold it in our trash can. But remember, our children are filled with garbage from the other parent. And even if they're not in contact with that parent and they've chosen to go no contact for their own well-being, their own mental health as they're healing, right? Then that this garbage is still in there. So we're not like, that's not like, okay, I'm all better. Everything is great. So you got to be able to be graceful with your child and hold the space. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, my dad, exactly. And there have been times where there's this one time in particular where my dad, I took it way, I overreacted basically to something that he did that was not done out of malice at all. It was just something he did. And I later apologized and he's like, oh, it's totally fine. Like he hadn't taken it personally. He knew, oh, thank you, Sean. Just because the Anti-Alienation Project is awesome. Um, Thank you. I appreciate that. So, Dorsey, I know that we have mostly parents here listening. I want to ask you something.
Okay.
If you were in their shoes, which I know that you somewhat were, um, and you have this information now, and you know that there is a diagnosis, but it's like no one really knows how to diagnose it, you said, or it's not really diagnosed by many people. You did mention a family systems therapist, but besides that, what would you do in their situation right now, starting from the beginning? Like, what would you do for if you have a child under 18, and then what would you do for a child over 18?
Okay. So I mentioned this earlier. There is a legal strategy using the ABAB single case design. So this is such a great gift that Dr. Childress gave to me and us, everyone. But I was like, I didn't know because I didn't know the ABAB single case design is a research model. And so I thought, wow, this is so brilliant. He created this book using the high road. He used it for the high road, but the ABAB single case design is a beautiful legal strategy where if you're cut off from your child, you're in the A right now. There's no solution. The mental health providers aren't doing anything, blah, blah, blah. So you can petition the court for the protective separation and an intervention. And that's the first B. So I'm just going to give you high level. It is in the document. I talk a lot about this in the document for the legal strategy stuff. And I've talked a lot about it on my YouTube and stuff. So there's a lot out there and you can download or buy the book from Dr. Childress. But actually, I think it's even on his website. I don't know. I think it is. But the ABAB single case design. A is where you are. Nothing's working. B is a temporary no contact with the alienating parent, the pathogenic parent, placing the child with the rejected parent, and for a minimum of 90 days. High road or family systems therapy, something at the beginning, and then reintroducing the pathogenic parent in a controlled environment in the second A. If the pathology does not resurface in the child using the relationship rating scale in the ABAB single case design, you've solved it, ABA, okay? If the pathology resurfaces in the child, then we know that it's caused by the pathogenic parenting of this parent, and it's a second protective separation, A, B, A, B. And we have all the tools and instruments to monitor everything as you go along. Okay, so that is a solution. And you're going to get pushback from the lawyers because they don't understand it. This is why I created the document to help them understand how to use these instruments, because I realize there's a lot of stuff, but they don't know what to do. If you have adults, so that's if you're still in family court, and you've got a competent or a decent lawyer. If they're talking about alienation, they understand sort of, but you really need to get somebody who understands the actual diagnosis. But if you don't have a diagnosis, I would use the ABAB. We use it all the time. So we guide our clients through using the ABAB single case design. We use it in custody resolution method. We actually walk lawyers and stuff through the process. If you have adult children, then I highly recommend doing your healing work. And you may be like, oh, I've already done my healing work and I've done this and I've done that. And maybe you have, and a lot of people have. And if you're still in a breached relationship with your adult children, then there's still more work for you to do. And I know this isn't going to land with a lot of people and you're probably going to get mad at me, and that's fine. And also, there's deeper work for you still to shift how you're showing up. So if you're not in contact, start reaching out to your kids. So somebody said to me the other day, I've got my kid's number, but I'm not communicating with them. Why not? Well, I'm unblocked, so I don't want to get blocked. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, that is the dumbest thing. Like, reach out to your child. Well, what if they block me? I'm like, well, you're not communicating. What difference does it make if you're not? What's the point of being unblocked if you're not going to reach out? Like, okay, reach out. And if you're afraid, then work on what that fear is. I don't think people talk enough about like the trauma that you're experiencing. Heal your trauma, do your trauma work. It's okay that you're scared, and it's okay that you're traumatized. Of course you are. Of course. And do your work. You want to be a soft place for your child to land. So if you have adult kids, they may not understand alienation and child psychological abuse, and they love the other parent. They love their other parent too. And they a lot of times know that that parent is traumatized, and they don't know what to do with all the garbage like we were talking about earlier. So if you aren't healed and you're never going to be perfect, but if you're not capable of holding for them, they're not going to fold back in. So you have to be able to open up that space for them and open your heart again and allow them to fold back in. When I work with adult kids all the time, they say to me, something in my parent changed. I can't figure out what it is, but it's easier for them to say something in them. And it's okay. It's okay. Yeah. So do your work. It's up to you. You're the chosen parent, and your child is waiting for you. They're waiting for you to rise up and remember who you are. Your mom, your dad, and they love you so much. They never stopped loving you, even though they say they did, even though they say they hate you. That they don't. They literally don't.
Do you have any thoughts for parents who are dealing with false allegations or restraining orders?
Yes. Um, don't go down that rabbit hole alone, and don't just trust the lawyer is going to have your back or that the judge is going to understand because the allegations are false. So if you need support, reach out to us. We can help you put your case together. You do not want to go down the path of false allegations with a mindset that, well, they're false, so the judge is going to see what's going on and fix it. They're not. You need to have a strategy from the beginning. And if you're in the middle of it, you need to get a strategy right away. You can't rely just on what the lawyer is going to tell you. They're not motivated to solve it, and they're not solving it. And if you have a restraining order, you've got to overturn the restraining order. You can't let that stand and sit. You actually need to fight it, and you need to fight it with a proper strategy. We can't, I mean, that's like hours and hours of conversation, but just in general, don't assume that the lawyer knows what they're going to do and they're going to get it kicked and that they're motivated to. And also don't assume that it's false, so it's ridiculous and that everybody's going to see that it's false. They're not. So
Yeah.
proper strategy. Yeah. Get
Yeah.
prepared, gather your evidence, and get prepared properly. And it's not just your evidence, it's your legal strategy, your narrative, how you're showing up. And oftentimes false allegations have kernels of truth. And so you need to be able to sort that out, because they'll hyper focus on that, and they'll look for the system, the family court system especially, will look for ways to justify making bad decisions. And it's hard to overcome bad decisions. And you can't just overcome bad decisions with feelings. You need facts and evidence organized and presented in a way that actually helps the judge understand what's happening and then what to do about it. You can't rely on everyone else telling you what to do about things. You need to actually have a strategy and a plan. And one plan. Don't give them an out, because they'll take it.
What about for kids who are over the age of 18 and they still believe these false allegations? And that's part of the reason why they don't talk to their parent, because that was my case.
Yeah. Deep down, did you believe it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because the cops were involved, like the judicial system. Holy shit. Thank you. Breathe in air and Samantha meditation. That is very, very kind of you. Thank you so much. Wow. I did believe it.
Okay. What caused you to shift?
I discovered other lies that my alienating parent had been telling me that were very troubling. So I started to think, what if she lied about my dad too?
Yeah. And what opened the space for you when you discovered that she lied about your dad? Like, you were like, you had an aha, and then you reached out to your dad.
Um,
What happened when you reached out?
um, I I felt like my whole world was crashing down, like something had shifted on its axis, but it didn't all happen at once. Like I learned the lie about my mom, and then I learned about parental alienation maybe a few days later.
Mm,
Um, but I actually was a little bit excited and hopeful
hmm.
because I always wanted my dad to love me.
Yeah.
Um,
What
as
was the lie? The lie was that your dad didn't love you.
that was one of the lies.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. So you believed your dad didn't love you,
yeah,
right? But
yeah.
this is the belief about you. So, and then you internalize that belief that you were unlovable and that it was about you. So I want to point something out that I think a lot of parents miss. And since we know they're watching, and everybody's watching, so we'll just say, we'll speak this truth. This happens to every one of us, creates a narrative about ourselves in based on our parents. And we create narrative because we don't have anything to compare it to in the first 5 years of life. And so even if our parents are married and they stay together and all of those things, they still have their traumas and all that kind of stuff. So it's not just this family dynamic, it's just human nature. And so you're the lie that you actually believed was that you were unlovable, that even your own dad
Yeah.
didn't love you.
And
So yeah. So if you think about what the belief was it wasn't really about your dad. It was actually about you. And this is the problem with this trauma, is that it wires your brain to believe that you're a bad person and that you're unlovable. And it's just simply not true. And so it's not convincing. I could tell you and all these people, and you do this because all these people are like, you're amazing, Maddie, and da 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 da. But it's almost false praise, even though it's true. It feels false praise. You can't receive it because the trauma isn't my dad doesn't love me. That's the trauma is I'm unlovable and I'm bad. And so that's the trauma. And that's what you actually believe. And when your dad folds back in, that belief doesn't go away. That belief is still there. It's what you believe in your core. And that's the deeper work. That's the healing that comes for you. And and if you're listening, parents, this is where you need to really understand. Stop waiting around. Stop waiting for the court to figure it out, or the therapist or the judge or whoever. Stop it. Do your work, because this is the imprinting on the child. And the child then grows up and believes this bullshit, and they have to do the healing work. This is the healing work I'm talking about. Your mom also believes she's unlovable. Your mom believes that she is bad, and she's passed the trauma ball down to you, and you're holding the fire. And you say, what do I do with the fire? Do I heal it? You want to get rid of it, but you believe it. And so it's an integration. It's a healing, a deeper healing, and understanding, and an integration. And even this, having this conversation with you, is, I can see it already in your energetic field, like, oh, got it. It's like, of course, right? It's what happens. So it's not your dad, it's what you believe about yourself.
Mhm.
And all kids, we all do it. We all internalize. I'm bad, I'm unworthy, I'm not good, I'm unlovable. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And then when you realize you kind of got everything backwards,
Hmm.
um, it's kind of like you have the same feeling about the parent who did this to you.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you do, yeah, at least you know that it's their own issues.
It's, yes. And you can still see it. And until you do your work, you still hold the imprinting, right? You still hold it, and all the things, until you heal the shame. The shame comes bubbling to the surface, and the guilt, and you have to be held, right? Somebody has to help you, or you do it yourself, but there's a process to like move that energy out of your body, right? So that you don't say, I'm not, I'm going to then pass it down. It's like, no, I'm not. I'm going to keep that. I'm going to keep it, but we don't keep it, we alchemize it. We heal it and alchemize it. And then we integrate, because they're parts of our consciousness, right? They're all parts of us. And that the protector part of us is like trying to keep us safe. So it believes these things because it's ingrained, and you didn't have anything to compare it to. So it just became what you believed. And people think, well, I'm telling you that's not what it is, so you should just believe me now. Well, that's not the way it works. It's not that easy, right? It's a process. And when you can source it, and then you heal it, right? So most people spend a lot of time sourcing, but never really actually processing and healing it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a good place to wrap up. I do agree that has been the most devastating, destructive part of this whole experience, for
Hmm.
sure.
Yeah.
So, yeah, definitely agree with you there. Um, and from my perspective, um, I care less about what we call this and more about actually helping children get out of it and
Hmm.
avoid the unnecessary suffering and pain and trauma,
Yeah.
and focusing on solutions that we can already implement.
Yeah.
Um, so for everybody listening now live or playing the video back later, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Have you experienced this? Do you think we need a new diagnosis, or are the answers already in front of us? And please go follow Dorsey. She has her channel on YouTube. I'll put it in the comments or the description after this. And thank you again, Dorsey, for sharing your insight and your experience and all of the knowledge. And if this episode resonated with you, please give it a thumbs up to get it in the algorithm, or consider sharing it, because the more that we talk about this stuff, the closer that we will get to actual change.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, this has been good. I'll hope that we can, how do I say this? I wish all mental health providers and clinicians knew about this.
Yeah. Me too. They're starting to wake up. They are starting to wake up. I mean, we're training some in our coach training, and they're starting to wake up. I'm in a mental health provider who's in my coach training in Florida. I'm actually in her office doing this because I just traveled here. And Saturday, I was asked to go to the graduation, the high school graduation of a kid that I recovered in a high road a few years ago. So she asked me if I would come to her graduation, and it's such an honor. I'm like super excited. It's Saturday and it's
Oh,
actually here. So I'm here for a conference and I actually get to go and celebrate her graduation. And yeah, so for those of you that hear all the horrible things that the flying monkeys and haters say about the high road, it's just simply not true. And, the high road gives children their life back and their relationships back. And we teach them how to repair breaches in their relationships. And yeah, so keep on keeping on. And Maddie, thank you so much. Your voice is so powerful and so necessary. And I appreciate your platform. Thank you for letting me share here with you. I just love and adore you. And I'm grateful to have you on the battlefield with me.
yeah, thanks for paving the way. You've been at it for 20 years. I don't know how, but
Don't know either.
anyway, thank you everybody for being here tonight. I appreciate it, and I hope everybody has a great weekend. I do have a live chat, the monthly live chat I do on Sunday night at 6:30 MST to 7:30 or 6 o'clock Mountain Standard Time, sorry, to 7:30 Mountain Standard Time. So be sure to join me for that if you're free, and otherwise I'll see you